In today's episode, we're exploring 5 horrifying lion attacks. From a family's anniversary celebration that turned into a massacre in 7 minutes, to a zookeeper's routine day that became her last. But first, let's begin with the first story, where one family's dream safari adventure became their final moments together. It was September 23rd, 2024, and the sprawling Texas landscape of Wildland Safari Ranch stretched endlessly under the blazing afternoon sun. The 5,000-acre property outside San Antonio had been transformed into an authentic African experience, complete with acacia trees, watering holes, and custom-built enclosures housing some of Africa's most magnificent predators. The Martinez family had arrived that morning for their long-awaited anniversary weekend, their excitement palpable as they checked into the luxury safari lodge that promised close encounters with exotic wildlife in a controlled environment. Carlos Martinez, 38, had worked double shifts in construction for months to afford this special trip for his wife, Maria's 35th birthday and their wedding anniversary. Maria, a dedicated elementary school teacher, had dreamed of seeing African lions since childhood, and their children Sophia, 12, and Diego, 9, had been counting down the days since Christmas, when Carlos surprised them with the booking. The ranch advertised itself as offering authentic safari experiences with professional guides and state-of-the-art safety protocols. The family had spent the morning on a guided vehicle tour, marveling at zebras, giraffes, and antelope roaming freely across the Texas plains. Their guide, Keel Morris, was a seasoned wildlife expert with 15 years of experience who had worked at legitimate African reserves before joining the ranch staff. As the afternoon tour began, Keel led the Martinez family to the crown jewel of the ranch's attractions, the lion habitat, where 3 African lions lived in a sprawling enclosure designed to mimic the Serengeti. African lions are apex predators that have ruled the African savanna for millennia, with adult males weighing between 400 and 500 pounds and possessing the strength to take down prey much larger than themselves. Male lions are territorial and aggressive, especially when protecting their pride or territory from perceived threats. Their powerful jaws can deliver a bite force exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch, while their razor-sharp claws can grow up to 3 inches long. The family approached the viewing area adjacent to the lion enclosure, where a massive 450-pound male named Simba paced behind reinforced fencing. Keel had positioned them at the designated photo spot when he realized he had forgotten his professional camera equipment. He assured the family he would return in just a moment and instructed them to remain exactly where they were while he retrieved the camera for their anniversary photos. Keel walked back to the vehicle to fetch his camera, but the tour routes at Wildlands stretched farther than guests realized. The vehicle was parked nearly a quarter-mile away, behind a maintenance compound, and Keel had to cross gravel paths and a service gate to reach it. Meanwhile, radio traffic from another sector of the ranch warned of a disabled access gate. Staff scrambled to locate keys and coordinate a response. Ranch protocol also restricted untrained personnel from entering the enclosure area, even in an emergency, meaning the first responders were forced to stage and plan a safe retrieval rather than rush in immediately. Carlos noticed what appeared to be a service gate in the fencing. Warning signs were posted, but he misread them as general cautions rather than prohibitions. The latch hadn't been secured properly after earlier maintenance, and believing it might offer a better angle for photos, he pulled it open. The moment Carlos opened the gate, Simba's predatory instincts exploded into action. The massive lion had been watching the family intently, and the opening triggered his territorial response immediately. The lion's initial impact sent Carlos sprawling backward onto the ground with bone-crushing force. Simba's jaws locked around Carlos's neck, crushing his windpipe and severing arteries in seconds. Carlos's body convulsed as the lion shook him violently, the force snapping vertebrae and leaving catastrophic trauma. Maria's screams pierced the air as she grabbed Sofia and Diego, trying desperately to shield them from the horrific scene unfolding before them. But Simba's attack was far from over. After releasing Carlos's lifeless body, the lion turned his attention to the rest of the family, his predatory instincts driving him to eliminate all perceived threats to his territory. Simba's second charge targeted Maria, who was attempting to push her children toward the tour vehicle. The lion's massive paw struck her in the back with sledgehammer force, sending her tumbling forward as his claws raked across her spine and shoulders. Maria's desperate attempts to crawl away only triggered Simba's hunting instincts further, and his jaws found her neck within seconds. Sofia and Diego tried to run toward the distant tour vehicle, but their small legs were no match for Simba's speed and agility. The lion caught Sofia first, his powerful jaws crushing her small frame instantly before turning to pursue Diego, who had made it only 20 yards before Simba's final attack ended the massacre. Keel returned with his camera equipment and froze at the horrific scene. Simba paced around the lifeless bodies while the viewing area fell into chaos. Shaking, Keel grabbed his emergency radio and called for help. Within minutes, ranch staff and armed responders converged on the enclosure, but by then, the scene was devastatingly still. Witnesses later described the attack as a series of savage bursts separated by tense moments when the lion guarded the bodies and paced the enclosure. Despite rapid action once help arrived, the combination of Keel's distance, the compound's layout, and the ranch's own safety protocols meant staff could not intervene faster. The 7-minute window, investigators concluded, was a product of those delays, not because the animal fought continuously without pause, but because help took precious time to reach the family and secure the enclosure. The state investigation found multiple failures that compounded the tragedy. A service latch left unfastened after maintenance, understaffed shifts, unclear emergency procedures for immediate enclosure breaches, and an access design that delayed response. Regulators described the incident as a catastrophic breakdown of both maintenance and emergency planning. Within days, the ranch's operating license was suspended pending a full review. Within a week, the facility announced permanent closure as lawsuits and public outcry mounted. The Martinez family's deaths prompted statewide inspections of similar facilities and a renewed push for stricter rules on predator enclosures, staffing minimums, and emergency access protocols. But family tragedies weren't the only deadly encounters with captive lions. In California, an experienced safari guide's confidence would prove fatal when he underestimated the hunting instincts of a pride he thought he knew. It was August 12, 2016, and the rolling hills of Golden State Safari Park in Central California shimmered under the intense summer heat. The 800-acre drive-through facility had been operating for 12 years, allowing visitors to observe African wildlife from the safety of their vehicles while professional guides maintained the animals and facilities. The afternoon shift was beginning as maintenance crews prepared for the evening feeding routines that kept the park's lions, tigers, and other predators healthy and content. Robert Thompson, 34, had been working as a senior safari guide at the park for 5 years, building a reputation as one of the most knowledgeable and fearless staff members. His Instagram account had attracted 2,800 followers who enjoyed his behind-the-scenes content and insider knowledge about the animals' behaviors and personalities. Robert had developed what he believed were personal relationships with many of the big cats, often sharing stories about their individual quirks and preferences. That afternoon, Robert was conducting a routine inspection along the perimeter of the African lion habitat, a 40-acre enclosure that housed a pride of 6 lions, including 2 adult females, 1 male, and 3 juveniles. The pride had been at the park for over 3 years, and Robert had been involved in their daily care since their arrival. He had grown comfortable with their routines and believed he understood their behavioral patterns well enough to predict their movements. Robert's inspection route took him to a section of perimeter fencing that had been damaged during recent storms, requiring assessment for repair work scheduled the following week. He parked his maintenance vehicle near the damaged fence line and conducted his standard radio check with the control center, reporting his location and estimated inspection time. African lions are social predators that live in coordinated family groups called prides, with females doing most of the hunting while males defend territory. Female lions are expert stalkers and ambush hunters, capable of moving silently through tall grass and remaining motionless for hours while waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They can reach speeds of 50 miles per hour in short bursts and possess the strength and agility to take down prey much larger than themselves. Even in captivity, lions retain their natural hunting instincts and will stalk and attack anything they perceive as prey or a territorial threat. Robert stepped out to examine the damage from the outside. Following standard protocol, he scanned the enclosure for lion locations before beginning his inspection. He spotted the male and two juveniles resting in the shade near the far watering hole, approximately 200 yards away. The two adult females were not immediately visible, but Robert assumed they were also resting in the shaded areas during the heat of the day. What Robert failed to realize was that one of the adult females, a 280-pound lioness named Nala, had been stalking his vehicle from dense brush near the fence line. Her natural hunting instincts had been triggered by the sound and movement of the maintenance truck, and she had positioned herself for an ambush attack while remaining completely hidden from Robert's view. The weakened fence line provided just enough of an opening for her to lunge through. In an instant, Nala closed the 30-yard gap, her 280-pound frame slamming Robert to the ground with crushing force. Nala's jaws clamped onto Robert's neck and shoulder, crushing vertebrae and cutting off his airway in seconds. His desperate attempt to reach his radio ended almost instantly as the lioness's weight pinned him to the ground. His muffled cries lasted only moments before the violent shaking silenced him. Her claws tore across his torso and arms in the struggle, leaving deep gashes. Within a minute, Robert's movements grew weak and then stopped altogether, his body no match for the lioness's instinctive precision. Other park staff discovered Robert's body during a routine patrol 30 minutes later, finding Nala still guarding her kill near the damaged fence. The lioness was tranquilized and relocated to a more secure section of the park, while Robert's death prompted immediate changes to safety protocols, requiring all staff to work in pairs when entering big cat territories. The investigation revealed that Robert had followed most safety procedures correctly, but had underestimated the lion's ability to remain hidden and stalk potential prey. His death became a sobering reminder that even experienced professionals could fall victim to the predatory instincts of captive wild animals. But experienced guides weren't the only ones who underestimated the dangers of working with lions. In Florida, a wildlife photographer's ambition to capture the perfect shot would lead her into a deadly encounter with a territorial male. It was March 7, 2015, and the sprawling grounds of Everglades Safari Ranch basked in the warm Florida sunshine, creating perfect conditions for wildlife documentary filming. The 500-acre private facility outside Naples housed over 40 rescued and retired exotic animals, including lions, tigers, and leopards that had been saved from failed roadside attractions and illegal ownership situations across the Southeast. The ranch operated as both a sanctuary and educational facility, offering guided tours while serving as a filming location for wildlife documentaries and conservation projects. Amanda Foster, 28, had arrived at the ranch that morning as part of a 3-person documentary crew filming a conservation piece about exotic animal rescue operations in Florida. Her role as wildlife cinematographer had earned her recognition in the documentary community, and her Instagram account had grown to 1,200 followers who appreciated her behind-the-scenes content from filming locations across the Southeast. Amanda specialized in capturing intimate footage of dangerous animals in controlled environments, believing her patient approach and understanding of animal behavior made her safer than other filmmakers. The documentary project focused on tracking the rehabilitation stories of rescued exotic animals and documenting their adaptation to sanctuary life. Amanda and her crew had been filming at the ranch for 3 days, hoping to capture compelling footage of the facility's most impressive residents, including a pride of African lions that had been rescued from a defunct circus operation 2 years earlier. Ranch staff had warned the crew about the lions' unpredictable nature and territorial behavior, but Amanda was confident in her ability to get the shots her documentary required while maintaining appropriate safety protocols. That afternoon, Amanda's filming schedule had led her to the ranch's most remote section, where the lion pride lived in a sprawling 20-acre enclosure designed to mimic African savanna conditions. Her crew members were positioned near the main facility with radio equipment, while Amanda moved ahead with her camera to scout potential filming locations for the afternoon shoot. The plan was for her to identify optimal camera positions and radio back for the full crew to approach with proper safety equipment and ranch supervision. African lions are highly territorial animals, especially males who will aggressively defend their domain against any perceived intruders. Male lions mark their territory with scent and will attack anything that enters their space without invitation. In captivity, lions retain all their wild instincts and territorial behaviors, making them extremely dangerous to humans who venture too close to their enclosures. The ranch's pride had been displaying increased territorial behavior since their rescue, developing heightened aggressive responses that made them particularly dangerous to unfamiliar humans. Amanda discovered what appeared to be an ideal filming location near the lion enclosure's perimeter, where the afternoon lighting would create perfect conditions for capturing the pride's natural behaviors. Her excitement at finding such an optimal setup overrode her caution, and she decided to begin preliminary filming rather than waiting for her crew and ranch supervision. She believed she could capture establishing footage while maintaining a safe distance from the actual enclosure barriers. As Amanda adjusted her telephoto lens and began filming through the ranch's reinforced fencing, she failed to notice that recent storm damage had compromised a section of the enclosure's perimeter. A 420-pound male lion named Caesar had discovered the weakened barrier and had been testing it for days, eventually creating an opening large enough for him to squeeze through into the filming area. Caesar's attack came without warning as Amanda focused on her camera viewfinder. The lion had silently emerged from the compromised enclosure section and had been stalking her from the ranch's landscaped grounds. His 420-pound frame exploded from concealment with devastating speed, covering the 20-yard distance in powerful bounds that gave Amanda no opportunity to escape or defend herself. The lion's jaws found Amanda's head and neck immediately, his powerful bite force crushing her skull and severing her spinal cord within seconds. Caesar's 4-inch canine teeth punctured through bone and brain tissue, while his massive paws pinned her body to the ground. Amanda's desperate screams echoed across the ranch grounds, but her crew was too far away to hear or respond immediately. Caesar's claws raked across Amanda's torso and limbs, each swipe opening deep wounds that caused massive blood loss and trauma. The lion's territorial fury drove him to continue his assault with methodical efficiency, his captive instincts demanding complete elimination of the perceived threat to his domain. Amanda's crew discovered the scene 30 minutes later when she failed to respond to radio calls. Ranch staff arrived with tranquilizer equipment and emergency medical supplies, but Amanda had already sustained fatal injuries from Caesar's initial attack. The lion was sedated and the damaged enclosure section was immediately repaired, while Amanda's camera equipment revealed only brief footage of the attack's beginning. The investigation revealed that Amanda had violated ranch safety protocols by filming alone without supervision and approaching areas with compromised barriers. Her death prompted the facility to implement mandatory staff escorts for all filming activities and daily barrier inspections to prevent similar enclosure breaches. But professional filmmakers weren't the only ones who made fatal mistakes around captive lions. In Texas, a weekend volunteer's tragic error in judgment would cost him his life during what should have been a routine feeding. It was June 18, 2017, and the rustic facilities of Lone Star Exotic Animal Rescue buzzed with the activity of weekend volunteers preparing for evening feeding time. The 50-acre facility outside Dallas housed over 20 rescued big cats, including lions, tigers, and cougars that had been saved from illegal ownership and inadequate facilities across Texas. The rescue operated primarily on volunteer labor and donations, relying on dedicated individuals who donated their time to care for animals that would never be suitable for release. Michael Rodriguez, 31, had been volunteering at the rescue for 2 years, spending his weekends caring for the big cats while working his regular job as an accountant during the week. His Instagram account had attracted 1,400 followers who enjoyed his animal rescue content and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life at the facility. Michael had grown increasingly comfortable around the lions and tigers, often staying late to help with feeding and maintenance tasks that other volunteers found intimidating. That evening, Michael was assigned to feed Luna, a 300-pound female African lion who had been rescued from a failed breeding facility 18 months earlier. Luna had adapted well to sanctuary life, but remained unpredictable around humans, requiring strict safety protocols during all interactions. The feeding routine involved placing meat in Luna's enclosure while she was secured in a separate holding area, then releasing her to feed once all humans had exited the main enclosure. Michael had placed Luna's evening meal in the far corner of her enclosure, while she remained secured in a separate holding area. As he turned to leave, the empty food bucket slipped from his hand and clattered to the ground near the center of the space. With the rescue relying on a limited supply of costly equipment, retrieving it felt important. Female African lions are expert hunters with lightning-fast reflexes and powerful builds designed for taking down large prey. They are opportunistic predators that will attack anything they perceive as vulnerable or threatening, regardless of previous interactions or familiarity. Luna had been displaying increased food aggression recently, making her particularly dangerous during feeding times when her predatory instincts were heightened. This made it all the more critical to follow strict safety procedures, a fact Michael overlooked in a single fatal misstep. Instead of exiting and securing the bucket later, he decided to grab it quickly, assuming Luna would remain behind the gate for a few more moments. But as he bent down, the holding gate slid open sooner than he expected. Luna ignored the waiting meal and moved with silent precision through the enclosure, her focus fixed entirely on Michael. In an instant, her 300-pound frame slammed into his back with crushing force, knocking him to the ground. Before he could react, her jaws locked around his neck and shoulder, crushing vertebrae and cutting off his airway as her weight pinned him down. Michael's desperate cries for help echoed through the facility, sharp at first, and then muffled as Luna ragdolled him against the ground. His radio slipped from his belt and skidded across the dirt, uselessly crackling with static. Her claws tore into his back and arms, each swipe leaving deep, ragged wounds that bled heavily into the soil. He kicked and thrashed, trying to push her away, but her strength made every effort futile. To Luna, there was no familiarity, no recognition of a man who had cared for her. There was only instinct, the predator eliminating an intruder who had entered her space. Her jaws clamped tight as her weight pinned him down, leaving him unable to breathe or resist. His struggles slowed within moments, his calls for help fading into silence. Other volunteers found the scene roughly 10 minutes later when Michael failed to check in after his feeding assignment. Shocked by the sight, they raised the alarm as staff tranquilized Luna and relocated her to a more secure facility with enhanced safety protocols. Michael's death prompted the rescue center to enforce stricter rules, including mandatory 2-person teams for all big cat interactions. The investigation concluded that Michael had violated the facility's most fundamental safety rule by entering an enclosure with an unsecured animal. His death became a tragic reminder that familiarity with dangerous animals could lead to fatal overconfidence, even among experienced volunteers. But volunteers weren't the only ones whose overconfidence proved deadly around captive lions. In Arizona, a young zookeeper's eagerness to prove herself would lead to a fatal encounter during what should have been routine maintenance. It was October 4th, 2018, and the sprawling grounds of Southwestern Wildlife Transport Services buzzed with activity as crews prepared for one of the largest exotic animal relocations in Arizona history. The specialized facility outside Phoenix served as a temporary staging area for big cats being transferred between zoos, sanctuaries, and research facilities across the western United States. That morning, a convoy of climate-controlled transport vehicles had arrived carrying lions, tigers, and leopards destined for new homes at accredited facilities throughout the region. Lisa Chen, 26, had recently joined the transport company as an animal handling specialist after graduating with a zoology degree from Arizona State University. Her role involved coordinating the complex logistics of moving dangerous predators safely between facilities while ensuring their health and welfare during transit. Lisa maintained a small educational blog with 900 followers about wildlife conservation and the behind-the-scenes work of animal relocation, sharing insights about the challenges of transporting apex predators. The day's most challenging transfer involved Atlas, a 400-pound male African lion being moved from a defunct roadside attraction to an accredited sanctuary in Colorado. Atlas had been living in substandard conditions for years and had developed aggressive tendencies that made him particularly difficult to handle. The lion required specialized sedation protocols and custom transport equipment designed to contain animals with his size and temperament. Lisa had been assigned to oversee Atlas's pre-transport preparation, which involved moving him from the temporary holding facility into a specially designed transport crate. The procedure required precise coordination between veterinary staff administering sedatives and handling teams managing the transfer equipment. Atlas needed to be partially sedated, but remain conscious enough to walk into the transport crate under his own power. African lions are apex predators with immense physical strength and territorial instincts that make them extremely dangerous during stressful situations like transport. Male lions can weigh over 400 pounds and possess bite forces exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch, while their razor-sharp claws can inflict devastating wounds. Transport procedures are particularly hazardous because the stress of relocation can trigger aggressive responses even in normally docile animals. The veterinary team had administered Atlas's initial sedation dose, but the lion's metabolism was processing the drugs faster than expected. Lisa noticed that Atlas appeared more alert than the protocol specified, but the transport schedule was tight, and delays would affect multiple facilities expecting their animals. She made the decision to proceed with the transfer, believing the partial sedation would be sufficient to manage the 400-pound predator. Lisa positioned herself near the transport crate's entrance to guide Atlas into the container once the holding area gate was opened. The plan called for Atlas to be encouraged into the crate using food rewards, while Lisa maintained safe distance with a protective barrier between herself and the lion. However, the custom barrier system had been damaged during transport and wasn't properly secured. When the holding area gate opened, Atlas emerged more alert and aggressive than anyone anticipated. The partial sedation had reduced his coordination, but intensified his territorial instincts, making him unpredictable and dangerous. Instead of moving toward the food rewards in the transport crate, Atlas focused on Lisa as a perceived threat to his safety. The lion's charge was explosive despite his compromised coordination. Atlas's 400-pound frame covered the 15-foot distance to Lisa in powerful, unsteady bounds that knocked over the damaged barrier system. Lisa tried to retreat toward the facility's emergency exit, but Atlas's speed overwhelmed her completely. Atlas's massive body slammed into Lisa's back with bone-crushing force, sending her sprawling forward onto the concrete loading area. The lion's jaws clamped down on her neck and shoulders, his canines tearing through muscle and arteries, while his powerful bite caused catastrophic spinal injuries. Lisa managed a brief, panicked call over her emergency radio before the attack overwhelmed her. Atlas's claws raked across her torso and arms, each swipe opening deep wounds that caused massive blood loss and trauma. The partial sedation made his movements uncoordinated but no less deadly, leaving him disoriented and dangerously aggressive as he continued the assault. The transport team responded within minutes with additional sedatives and emergency equipment, but Atlas's attack had already inflicted fatal injuries. The lion was fully sedated and secured, while Lisa received immediate medical attention. But she had sustained massive trauma to her spinal cord and major organs that proved unsurvivable. The investigation revealed multiple protocol violations, including proceeding with inadequate sedation levels and using damaged safety equipment. Lisa's death prompted comprehensive reforms in exotic animal transport procedures, including mandatory backup sedation protocols and enhanced barrier systems for all predator transfers. The incident led to industry-wide changes requiring veterinary oversight for all transport decisions and eliminating time pressure considerations that could compromise safety protocols. Lisa's tragic death became a catalyst for improved standards that protected both animals and handlers during the complex process of relocating dangerous wildlife. Thanks for watching. Click the next video for the next stories that will show you that no matter how controlled the environment may seem,